Good evening, everybody. With all my heart, I welcome you to our Anamkara meditation program this evening. So, this is just such a wonderful opportunity to get together and dive into the practices that are all about diving into the highest truth of who we are and what all beings are, what all creation is, the unfolding of the divine, the revelation of the divine in the moment, in forms and beyond forms. And so it's the practices, the contemplations, and entering into that state, that self-luminous state. Because really what we come to know is all given to us by our own highest self. The self reveals the self to the self. That's what the ancient Upanishads say. We make use of the practices to really sort of help cultivate the mind so that it's prepared to receive what's really being given moment by moment by your own divine self. And in these times of so much tumultuous activity going on in the world, all that has to do with the ephemeral nature of the world. The mind will never find peace in the ephemeral. The ephemeral is always changing. And so the mind driven to, attracted to this, avoiding that, will never find peace in that. All of the ephemeral realm, all of what we experience, has as its origin, as its source, as its real resting point, the eternal, the eternal one. That's the truth of who we are. That's what we come home to. That's where we can find real peace. The poor mind has spent lifetimes trying to find peace by getting what it wanted and thinking it's going to last, and of course, nothing like that ever lasts. So it's not until we reach the point where you all are, waking up and say, wait a minute, there's something beyond all this, that we really fully engage in practices that open the doors to that innate wisdom, that innate luminous sense of the self, the divine, in this moment, giving its gifts of rapture, of wisdom, of loving compassion, without limit. So that's why we gather, is to do that, to dive into that, to have that direct experience. So this evening what I wanted to do was a reading from, there's a great text called the Yoga Vasishtha, an ancient text, and it is one of the quintessential texts of Advaita Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta. And it's a conversation between the great sage, Vasishtha, and his disciple, Lord Rama. Right? So Ram, as in the Ramayana, he also learns from the Guru and regains the knowledge that was, of course, inherent and innate to him. But for the benefit of all, this dialogue happened. And so it's really for our benefit that it was going on. Not so much Ram, not so much Vasishtha. They knew. But the recording of it then opens doors of insight, of wisdom, of contemplation that really helps support our mind becoming more and more refined in what we call viveka. Viveka is discrimination, the ability to discern the difference between the eternal and the ephemeral, the true self and the ephemeral self, the little self, the conventional I, the ego mind. So that we can find rest where it really lies. That's in the eternal. That's in the luminous being that is our essence. Then, from that standpoint, we can look at the mind, we can look at the body, and all they suffer and all they go through with tremendous compassion and love. Not only our own body, but all bodies, all beings. So it opens the doors to that profound compassion and love and patience. Now I'm going to start with this reading from the Yoga. This is actually an abridged version. The Yoga Vasishtha is quite long. So this is the Concise Yoga Vasishtha. And it was put together by Swami Venkatesananda. And it's a great translation. Right? And you've heard me talk and tell some stories about the great enlightened King Janaka. So this is part of King Janaka's story as told to Lord Ram by the great sage Vasishtha. O Rama, There is a great monarch whose vision is unlimited, who rules over the Videha's territory, and he is known as Janaka. To those who seek his aid, he is a cornucopia. In his very presence, the heart lotuses of his friends blossom. He is like unto a son for them. He is a great benefactor to all good people. One day, as he went through the garden where he roamed freely, and while he was thus roaming, he heard the inspiring words uttered by certain holy perfected ones, siddhas. Thus did the perfected sages sing. We contemplate that self which reveals itself as the pure experience of bliss, when the seer comes into contact with the object without a division or conceptualization. The non-dual experience is what the sages is talking about. We contemplate the self in which the objects are reflected non-volitionally. Once the divided experience of subject-object and the intention or volition that created this division have ceased. We contemplate that light that illumines all that shines, the self that transcends the twin concepts of is and is not, and which therefore is in the middle of the two sides, as it were. So the great sages, like Buddha, talked about the middle way. This is what they were talking about. We contemplate that reality in which everything exists, to which everything belongs, and from which everything has emerged, which is the cause of everything, and which is everything. We contemplate the self, which is the very basis of all language and expression, being the alpha and the omega, which covers the entire field from ah to ha, and which is indicated by the word aham, I am. Right? So that's one of the practices we do. That's why we come back to that ancient mantra, which is a direct throb, a direct emanation of that consciousness of I am. But it's I am all that is, nothing separated, nothing left out. Alas, people run after other objects, foolishly giving up the Lord who dwells in the cave of one's own heart. He who, having known the worthlessness of the objects, still remains bound at heart to them, is not a human being. One should strike down every craving with the rod of wisdom, whether that craving has arisen or is about to rise in the heart. One should enjoy the delight that flows from peace. The man whose mind is well controlled is firmly established in peace. When the heart is thus established in peace, there arises the pure bliss of the self without delay. Ananda, pure, rapturous, ecstatic bliss is one of the root qualities of our true nature. The Vasishtha says, well, having heard the words of the sages, King Janaka became terribly depressed. With the utmost expedition, he retraced his steps to the palace, and quickly dismissing all his attendants, he sought the seclusion of his own chamber. King Janaka said to himself, alas, alas, I am helplessly swinging like a stone in this world of misery. What is the duration of a lifespan in eternity? Yet I have developed a love for it, a fire in the mind. What is sovereignty even during a whole lifetime? Yet, like a fool, I think I cannot do without it. This lifespan of mine is but a trivial moment. Eternity stretches before and after it. How shall I cherish it? Ah, who is that magician who has spread this illusion called the world and deluded me? How is it that I am so deluded? And realizing that what is near and what is far is all my mind, I shall give up the apprehension of external objects, knowing that all the busyness in the world leads only to endless suffering. What hope shall I cherish for happiness? Day after day, month after month, year after year, moment after moment, I see happiness come to me bearing sorrow, moment after moment. I see happiness comes to me, bearing sorrow. Sorrow comes to me again and again. So even the pleasures of the world, is what Buddha also spoke about. The pleasures of the world are always tainted by they will end, and then there will be pain, the loss of what that pleasure was, or the seeking for another. Whatever is seen or experienced here is subject to change and destruction. There is nothing whatsoever in this world which the wise would rely on. They who are exalted today are trodden underfoot tomorrow. O foolish mind, what shall we trust in this world? Alas, I am bound without a cord. I am tainted without impurity. I am fallen, though remaining at the top. Oh, myself, what a mystery! Even as the ever-brilliant sun suddenly faces a cloud floating in front of him, I find this strange delusion mysteriously floating towards me. Who are these friends and relatives? What are these pleasures? Even as a boy seeing a ghost is frightened, I am deluded by these fanciful relatives. Knowing such relatives as cords that bind me to this old age and death, etc., I still cling to them. Let these relatives continue or perish. What is it to me? Great events and great men have come and gone, leaving just a memory behind. On what shall one place reliance even now? Even gods and the Trinity have come and gone 1,000,000 times. What is permanent in this universe? It is a vain hope that binds one to this nightmare known as world appearance. Fie on this wretched condition. I am like an ignorant fool, deluded by the goblin known as the ego sense, which creates the false feeling, I am so-and-so, knowing full well that time has trampled underfoot countless gods and trinities. I still entertain love for life. Days and nights are spent vain cravings, but not in the experience of the bliss of infinite consciousness. I have gone from sorrow to greater sorrow, but dispassion does not arise in me. What shall I regard as excellent or desirable, seeing that whatever one cherished in this world has passed away, leaving one miserable? Day by day, people in this world grow in sin and violence. Hence, day by day, they experience greater sorrow. Childhood is wasted in ignorance. Youth is wasted in lusting after pleasure, and the rest of one's life is spent in family worries. What does a stupid person achieve in this life? He's really diving into it here. Even if one performs great religious rites, one may go to heaven, but nothing more. What is heaven? Is it on earth, or is it in the netherworld? And is there a place which is untouched by affliction? Sorrow brings happiness, happiness brings sorrow on its shoulders. The pores of the earth are filled with the dead bodies of beings, hence it looks solid. There are beings in this universe whose winking is of the duration of an epoch. What is my lifespan in comparison? Of course, these appear to be delightful and enduring objects in this world, but they bring with them endless worries and anxieties. Prosperity is truly adversity, and adversity may be desirable depending upon the effects of the mind. Mind alone is the seed for this delusion of world appearance. It is the mind that gives rise to the false sense of I and mine. In this world, which appears to have been created even as the fruit of a coconut palm might appear to have dislodged by a crow which coincidentally happened to light on the tree at that moment, sheer ignorance generates feelings like, this should I have, and this I should reject. It is better to spend one's time in seclusion or in hell than live in the world appearance. Intention or motivation alone is the seed for this world appearance. I shall dry up this motivation. I have enjoyed and suffered all kinds of experience. Now I shall rest. I shall not grieve anymore. I have been awakened. I shall slay the thief of the mind who has stolen my wisdom. I have been well instructed by the sages. Now I shall seek self-knowledge. Vasishtha writes, seeing the king thus seated, engrossed in deep contemplation, his bodyguard respectfully approached him and said, Lord, it is time to consider your royal duties. Your Majesty's handmaidens awaits your pleasure, having prepared you a perfumed bath. The holy priests await your arrival in the chamber to commence the chanting of the appropriate hymns. Lord, arise and let what has to be done, for noble men are never unpunctual or negligent. King Janaka, ignoring the bodyguard's words, continued to muse, what shall I do with this court and the royal duties when I know that all of these are ephemeral? They are useless to me. I shall renounce all activities and duties and remain immersed in the bliss of the self. O mind, abandon your craving for the sense pleasures so that you may be rid of the miseries of repeated old age and death. Whatever be the condition in which you hope to enjoy happiness, whether that condition is the very conditions that prove to be the source of unhappiness, enough of this sinful condition pleasure seeking. Seek the delight that is natural and inherent in you. Seek the self. That's the source. That's what he's heading for. Seeing that the king was silent, the bodyguard became silent too. What shall I seek to gain in this universe, the king thought. On what eternal truth in this universe shall I rest with confidence? See, it's resting on the eternal. That's the whole point of all the sadhana practices. What difference does it make if I am engaged in ceaseless activity or if I remain idle? Nothing in the world is truly enduring in any case. Whether active or idle, the body is impermanent and ever-changing. And when the intelligence is rooted in equanimity, what is lost and how? I do not long for what I do not have, nor do I desire to abandon what has come to me unsought. I am firmly established in the self. Let what is mine be mine. There is nothing that I should work for, nor is there any meaning in inaction. Whatever is gained by action or by inaction is false. When the mind is thus established in desirelessness, when it does not seek pleasure, when the body and its limbs perform their natural function, action and inaction are of equal value of meaning. Hence, let the body engage itself in the natural functions. Without such activity, the body will disintegrate. When the mind ceases to entertain the notions, I do this, I enjoy this, in regard to the actions thus performed, action becomes non-action. It's not about just sitting still and inert. That's not a state of freedom. That's bondage to inertness. How do we have the state that's free, even while actions are being performed, our dharmas, our duties are being attended to, our loved ones are being taken care of? This is the state of equanimity that's beyond action and inaction. That's what he's driving at. Vasishtha says, reflecting thus, King Janaka rose from his seat as the sun rises from the horizon and began to engage himself in the royal duties without any attachment to them. Having abandoned all concepts of desirable and undesirable, freed from all psychological conditions and intention, he engaged himself in the spontaneous and appropriate action, as if in deep sleep. Though wide awake, he performed the day's tasks, including the adoration of the holy ones. And the conclusion of the day, he retired to his own seclusion to spend the night in deep meditation, which was easy and natural to him. his mind had naturally turned away from all confusion and delusion and had become firmly established in equanimity. So King Janaka states, so in the past when I've told stories about King Janaka and how, this monk had come because he wanted to see how does an enlightened being live as a king, and all of that's going on in that realm as being the king, all the pleasures, all the attendants, all the wives, everything. How could he be enlightened? And so when the monk went to see him and saw him sitting on his throne, he immediately got it, because he saw that as the king sat there, one foot was being massaged by some of his wives, and his other foot was in the fire of a brazier, and he was unmoved by either. It was a symbolic statement. How do we go beyond these kinds of pairs of opposites, pleasure and pain? How do we have the state of equanimity in the face of both? Because both will come to mind and body. The mind and body don't get free of pleasure and pain. We get free. Our consciousness is free. Our consciousness is only bound by those states of mind and body when it's identified with the states of mind and body. So that's what's going on when we're doing these kinds of practices, is we're getting free of all of that. And that then allows us to be in that state of equanimity even while actions are unfolding, because they're, in a sense, they're just the karmas that go with this body and mind unfolding in this life. Our consciousness doesn't have to get solely identified with them and then feel the bondage and create more karmas, because that's what happens when we're bound and identified with the instruments of mind and body. We create karmas. So getting free means getting free on all these different levels, because that's the nature of consciousness. It is free. And it was consciousness that freely engaged in becoming identified, and then it's consciousness that evolves through birth after birth after birth of the individual, so that it comes back to knowing the fullness, the truth of who and what we are, beyond the states of mind, the states of the world. So we can walk through the fires of the world. And so for as long as humanity has existed, those fires, those kinds of pains and suffering, as well as the ephemeral nature of pleasures that come and go, that is the realm of the conditioned experience of body and mind. It's fine. We don't have to be solely identified, nor do we have to kill it, nor do we have to just dissociate from it. It's part of the richness of the tapestry of all of what we are. But when we add the infinitude of being, when we add the infinite nature of who we are and are conscious of that, then the suffering of the mind and body, well, we see them in their rightful size. When we're fully identified with mind and body, it fills our entire vision. That's all there is the suffering of mind and body. But when we regain the fullness of our vision, then we still see the mind and body and what it goes through. We see how they can be servants of love and wisdom and compassion, rather than being servants of ignorance and delusion. These are choice points for us then, moment by moment, day by day, in our relationships, in our work, while driving on the highways, wherever it might be. We get to stay more and more with what's our eternal nature, the luminous consciousness that's illuminating. Oh, what's the mind experiencing now? Oh, see, if it got too identified, it gets contracted, it gets caught in pain, or it gets so caught in the pleasure of the moment that it's doomed to feel the suffering that's going to come when that pleasure, because it's ephemeral, ends. Now we're looking at all of that, from the standpoint of our own sublime self. And we see that radiance, we see that light of consciousness inherent in all beings, scintillating in all of creation, because it's all ourself. So from the point of view of ourself, that's what we see. We see the glory. We see the infinite creation unfolding, emanating from our own self. And as soon as we become identified with I, me, mine, this, that, not this, not that, then we're in that domain of suffering. Then we're in a domain creating more karma. That's why this world in the yogic tradition is called karma bhumi, the world of karma, the world of learning about what karma is. Karma is all about the law of cause and effect. What happens when we do something, when we're fully identified with mind and body? We create all kinds of untold consequences that we will have to live through who knows how many lifetimes in order to finish with that karma we may have created in a moment. Bringing consciousness, bringing discrimination, bringing detachment, bringing that loving, compassionate wisdom. That's why he says, I'm going to slay the mind with a stick of wisdom. Well, it's the wisdom of knowing the truth of who we are. It's not slaying the mind like it disappears. It's slaying the soul identification, the limited notion that all I am is this body, this mind, this individuality located in this time and space. That's true for this body, this mind. They're not going to have that awareness. So we have to be clear. We're not trying to make the body and the mind participate in something they can't. They are limited bound forms, sublime, created by your own infinite self to come to know the self. So they have their rightful place in the unfolding of grace that we call sadhana, that we call life, but they're not going to participate in that realization in the same way. The body may tremble, tears may flow as we go into ecstatic states and rapturous states, but the form holds steady. The individual mind goes into these states and dissolves, and then it reemerges. Why does it reemerge? Well, because its karmas aren't done. When its karmas are fully complete, then the mind dissolves, the body dissolves. This life ends. Now, it's interesting, in the Buddhist tradition, and it was in the e-newsletter that went out today from Ankara about the Bodhisattva path. And in Mahayana Buddhism, Bodhisattva and the Bodhisattva vows, a Bodhisattva is one who endeavors to attain that highest state of enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, and vows to keep coming back until all beings in all planes, in all domains, in all universes are free. So it's this selfless service, because the sort of the end point of that state, and Janaka also lived that, is to know and to serve. Now his dharma was to serve as a king. Our dharma is to serve as householders in the world with our relationships, our family, our loved ones, our work. We're realizing it in that field, because that's the sacred field of our existence. And it holds all the keys necessary to know the infinite as ourselves and live it joyously in our lives. So that's what we're called upon to do, and that's what the practices lead us to. And that root awareness of aham, that we become more and more attuned to, that simple bare awareness of being. Aham, I am. Not I am a something, not I am a nothing, just being. The beingness that's all-inclusive, all-embracing. Nothing left out. No other. There's not I am this and you're that. There's just I am. And I am is all. All that is. That's what King Janaka came to know. So when his body was living out the karmas of a king, with its pleasures and pains, as ephemeral as they are, his true self, your true self, is always in that state of equanimity. That's why Buddha talked about the four immeasurables, one of which was unshakable, boundless equanimity, that peace. The other qualities were the boundless wisdom, the boundless loving compassion, and the boundless rapturous joy. These are the qualities of what our true nature are. That's the eternal on which we can truly come to rest. Until the mind comes to rest there, it'll continue to have agitation. It can only fully come to rest in the eternal. The ephemeral can only come to rest in the eternal. The eternal is your luminous divine self. So we keep coming back to that. We look for all the ways that we can contemplate that, become immersed in that, bathe in the knowledge of that, contemplate sacred writings that help to bring that understanding into our minds in the moment. But it's the self-luminous quality of that inherent nature that sets us free. Not a scripture, not a holy being, not anything. It's the light of a self that is self-luminous and self-freeing. The self reveals the self to the self. That's what sets us free. So that's why in the state of meditation, we enter the state of such quiet. It's a quiet that's even beyond movements of the mind. Even if the mind moves, it didn't matter. The quiet is like the spaciousness that surrounds us here and now. Body can move, space is unmoved. Planets move through space, space is unmoved. Galaxies move through space, space is unmoved. The space, that spaciousness of pure, luminous awareness is what holds its own creation unfolding within its infinitude of being, and it remains untouched, unmoved by movements that it has created within itself. We can participate in that knowing, but it's beyond the mind. The mind can't think of that, conceptualize that. It can't even imagine that. It is beyond imagining, completely. It humbles the mind. So the mind has to finally give up trying to even grasp that which is completely ungraspable. So to enter that more and more, we make use of, well, what's an emanation of the divine? Oh, mantra. Mantra is the sound form of the infinite. It's a throb, a vibration. And if we become absorbed in mantra, we can then become so absorbed that we start to become more and more subtle as we pursue mantra into its subtler and subtler, more and more potent expressions. Because what sounds like Om Namah Shivaya as a sound is subtler when it's just repeated silently in the mind as Om Namah Shivaya. But Om Namah Shivaya is a throb of consciousness. So it eventually even sheds the form of Om Namah Shivaya and just becomes a throb of the awareness of I am. So the root of mantra is Aham. That's the state of consciousness encoded in the sound form of mantra that is so easily for the mind to be able to take up. It's a gift of the divine to the state of mind that's caught in duality. It says, here, this looks separate. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Kalima, Hamsa, Aham. Seems separate, but follow it all the way back to its source. And as it dissolves all forms of mind and attachment, we become more and more immersed in that luminous field of consciousness, where then, what those sages were talking about, subject-object disappears. Even the most exalted experience is still an experience called exalted by the mind, because the mind loves experience. It still has something to grasp, something to point at and go, oh, look at that, I've got that. That all has to go. As long as there is an experience and an experiencer to try and report on the experience, we're still caught in duality. So we're going beyond that. Mantra will take us beyond it all, dissolve us into the very source of mind, the very source of body, the very source of our life, the very source of all creation. Right here, right now. Always, right here, right now. That's the gift. It's always right here, right now. That's part of the wisdom that we awaken to know always here and now. If it seems separate, it's only because we became identified with the appearance of a separate mind. Let that go. Come back to I am. That's all there is. So let's chant. We'll chant Om Namah Shivaya. We'll chant for a few minutes, and then we'll just sit in this stillness. Let the mind continue to silently repeat the mantra, but with the awareness of I am that. I am the throb. I am the source. I am all there is. Aham is the root of Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. The mantra Om Namah Shivaya, Om is beyond definition, beyond words. It is the throb of the infinite. Namah Shivaya, I bow to the auspicious one. That orients the mind so that it bows, it's surrendering. The auspicious one. That's you, your true nature, the true you. Not the little mind, not the little identity. That's all right, they'll exist. We set them aside for now. We dissolve in the truth, who we are. So we'll chant for a few minutes, then sit in that stillness. And at the end of meditation, I'll ring a gong, and then we'll chant a few rounds and close out the evening. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jai. Om Shivaya. Shivaya. Resting in that stillness, the silence that surrounds all movements of mind, all movements of body. Silence, stillness, the great luminous spaciousness of awareness. It's the luminosity of awareness that makes movements of mind and body, the world, perceptible. We shift our attention from what's illuminated to what the source of illumination is. The one, the self. Rest there. We end with this prayer, that may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. And namaste. You're coming home in the stillness, in the silence, to the self-luminous one. Not because it doesn't exist in noisiness and movement, it's because the mind is so addicted to going after noise, movement, thoughts, sensations, so easily bored, so craving entertainment. So we endeavor to create the spaciousness, silence and stillness, so we can really know and perceive what's there all the time, in all places, always the same, illuminating everything. We would have no experience of anything without that luminous consciousness of our own divine self. So just by shifting our attention from what's illuminated to what's doing the illumination, that's how we come home to the truth of who we are in all beings. And this is a time of the year where so many traditions celebrate that living divine presence. And this Saturday, December 8th, is Ratsu. It's a celebration of Buddha's enlightenment. We have the celebration of Jesus. We have the celebration of the light of the divine revealing itself in the world. So this time, especially in the northern hemisphere, that our collective consciousness always noted, the growing darkness and looking forward to the return of light, including and celebrating the light born by these great beings to help illuminate the darkness of ignorance and dispel that for us. So we keep coming back through whatever tradition, that luminous quality of the one whose nature is awareness, whose nature is ecstatic, loving, compassionate wisdom. We want to know that. We want to walk arm in arm with that, moment by moment, day by day. That's what we're capable of. That's what this human birth is about. This is the sacred gift of a human birth in which we can know that, live it into the world for the sake of all beings. That's what we can do. So I want to thank you for being ones who do that, do practices, have that commitment. We'll come to a program like this and share your luminous nature with all. We may seem separate. The field of consciousness is one. We're held together. No separation, no distance in that field of consciousness. So we bring that throb of that luminous quality, the luminous loving quality. That's how the divine knows. The mind conjures knowing as something separate from loving. For the divine, for yourself, it knows intimately all through that light of love. It's the love that dissolves all difference, dissolves rejection, dissolves it all, embraces it all. That's what we come back to. That's what we come to know. That's what we're then empowered to walk into our everyday lives, our relationships, our work, our family, our dharmas, everything. So thank you for being ones doing that. This is the great hero's journey. This is the great work of this age, this dark age, to walk light, as much light as we have, to walk it into the world. So thank you for being ones doing that, moment by moment, day by day. And so then I look forward to seeing you again in our next program, 2 weeks.